Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Osseo gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Osseo's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Osseo. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. Hey folks, I want to take a minute to give you a heads up about Tethered's latest gear. If you're serious about staying mobile in the woods, you've got to check this stuff out. Now, I've been using their Ultra Lock saddle, and now the SD saddle is available. And let me tell you, this thing is dialed. It's ultra light, super adjustable, and most importantly, it's comfortable. You're not going to be shifting around up in the tree wondering if your legs are going to fall asleep. Pair that with the Predator V platform, which is stable, lightweight, and has an angled front edge for comfort. This thing will give you plenty of room for those critical moments when you need to make a move on a deer. And if you're like me and you spend long hours in the tree, you'll appreciate the new Predator CFX platform. Carbon fiber construction that keeps it light, but tough enough to handle whatever you throw at it. This is the kind of gear that makes a difference when you're out there all day. And listen, if you're always juggling your gear like I am, Tethered's got you covered with the universal platform pack. More rigid to make getting your platform in and out easier, and 2 sizes to fit the smaller and larger platforms. Whether you're hunting public land or heading to your favorite spot on the back 40, this setup makes carrying your platform so much easier. So if you're serious about getting in the game this season and hunting smarter, check out Tethered at tethered.com. Their gear will keep you lighter, quieter, and up in the tree longer, which, as we all know, is where the magic happens. Welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 424. Today I'm joined by my buddy Johnathan Moreland to talk about spear chucking, traditional bow hunting, and a 2-year chase of an Arkansas ghost. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. I hope you're doing well. I hope you are feeling fine. This is the first episode that I've done in, I don't know how many years it's been, 8-9 years, I think, that we've had the show. That now the video podcast will be widely available. Previously, you could only watch it on YouTube, but now Spotify, you can watch the video version of the podcast on Spotify as well. So if you're into the video portion of it, you can check it out in those 2 places, and hope you guys dig it. Without further ado, we're just going to kind of go ahead and jump into today's show. Have my buddy Johnathan Moreland on. Johnathan is from Arkansas. I met him 2 years ago, roughly, maybe a little more. And I haven't had him on in 2 years, which I should have had him on, more recently. But he's a heck of a hunter. He's from Arkansas, and the dude is just one of the most enthusiastic and passionate dudes I know when it comes to bow hunting. It doesn't matter, what variety, or what species that it might be, whether it's elk, whitetail, hogs, you name it, big deer, little deer. He doesn't care. As long as he has a bow in his hand, he's more than happy. He's a traditional bow hunter. But he took a little bit of a different approach this year for part of his season, and we talk about that, where spear hunting was actually legalized in Arkansas, and so he took full advantage of that and got a little experience behind the spear. So without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and jump into today's show. As always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, and today I got a fella on that I've had on before. It's been a shame. I think it's been probably 1.5 years since I had you on. I was going back to try to look to see, but
it's been a pretty good while.
Yeah, it's been a minute, but I got my buddy on, Mr. Johnathan Moreland. What's going on, buddy?
Oh, not a whole lot. Just getting off work about an hour ago, and
yeah,
kind of depressing time of the year. Season's winding down, so
I know
this time of year is not fun for me.
Yeah.
But, well, we still got a little bit of season left here in Arkansas. We run through the end of February, so
okay.
We got a little bit of hunting left to do, but a lot of our deer are actually starting to shed a little early this year. So
Yeah.
As far as the bucks, it's coming to an end pretty quick.
Yeah, I think most of PA at this point, is wrapped up for statewide. I do live in a special regs unit where I can hunt basically the end of the month, end of January, essentially. But my season was, I had one of those years where I was on a really good deer, and I like to say that stuff doesn't bother me. You know what I mean? Like whenever one gets taken out from underneath you, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
And I tried to tell myself that for weeks. I took a little break because I went real hard. I was living out of my truck and like a small trailer and stuff for a long time. Yeah. And so when it all happened, and I found out that deer wasn't alive anymore. It was around like Thanksgiving. So I was like, I'm just take a little break. Reset a little bit, and then I don't know what it is, man. Like I've just not had I was so fired up on that deer that I've had a hard time like flipping the switch because there's not really anything else I wanted to hunt. Like I was all in for him. Like I didn't know shit about shit else anywhere because everything was on that one.
Focused solely on that one deer.
Yeah. So for the first
seasons like that myself, or not wasted, but
yeah,
spend a lot of time on one deer and it doesn't pan out, but you never know, it may pan out.
Yeah. So I did get out in the woods and just do a walkabout yesterday. Was the first time I had gotten back out, which has been a couple weeks, and it felt good. And it kind of started getting the juices kind of churning again a little bit. You know what I mean? Like that's all it takes is just to get back out, smell that cold air real quick, and then you start getting fired up again.
Oh yeah. Up there where you're at, how long does you guys bow season run till? Is it over? Is it still in? Or
yeah, so for most of the state, it goes out. I think it's out now. Actually, I think it's just this past weekend, so like middle of January for most of the state. But I live in a special regs unit, and that deer was like in an area that it was you had to where the statewide kind of dates or what apply. So like that season's out in that area. But where I live, I could still hunt does and bucks with a bow, this time of year. And then I think even because I'm in a special regs unit, it goes till the end of January, and you can even hunt does with a shotgun. I think where I live specifically, until the end of January.
Okay.
So there's still a little bit of opportunity. It's like I might find myself out there, but I'm always kind of nervous, especially like when they start shedding and stuff.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, man, I don't want to kill a deer that shed his antlers and I mistook it for a doe or something, you know what I mean, this time of year, and maybe take a prospect off the list for next year unduly, but yeah, so that's where I'm at, man. But how's Arkansas treating you, man? How's you having some decent weather for hunting this time of year?
Last week it was really cold. Well, down here we on occasion get some snow every now and then, and actually, I've got one tag left this year, one doe tag, and I usually try to save one for the snow just because it's cool down here. It's pretty rare. So, kind of got all excited last Friday. We had a front come through. It was supposed to get a lot of snow in our area, and we pretty much just got a bunch of rain and a little bit of sleet. So, nothing, not enough on the ground to go paint the snow red or anything.
Right.
But still had a fun weekend. We took a couple kids out this weekend, and honestly, one of the best hunts I had all year was this weekend. I carried a really good friend of mine's son hunting, and he killed his first buck with a bow.
That's awesome, man.
Weekend, so it was pretty awesome weekend.
Yeah, man. I've been seeing like just following along with what you had going on this season as you were whenever you would post and stuff like that, and I noticed that you had a couple like hunts that you went out with some kids, like family or family friends and stuff like that. Man, that's got to be super cool to get those kids on deer.
There's nothing like watching a kid get all excited and kind of takes you back to when you were a kid. And I'll be honest with you, Saturday when Mason killed his deer, I was probably more excited than him. I mean, I'm not real good about whispering after I know I see somebody else make a good shot.
Right.
Me and him were hollering, and he's 14 years old, and he's had a couple opportunities this year and missed like we all do, and it's kind of down a little bit, and we got him in the yard, and my good buddy Drew got with him and helped him out on his shooting a little bit, and kind of talked to him, got his psych right, and man, he could not have made a more perfect shot.
That's awesome.
Saturday evening, and when I saw that arrow hit, I mean, it was freaking awesome, man. We immediately started celebrating. Like, didn't even see the deer, didn't even know where the deer ran in. I knew it was 100%, kill shot when he made it. So, I don't know. I just love hunting, and even to see, kids have success or your buddies have success, it's just always fun, and it just gets me fired up no matter what. So we had a heck of a weekend, and probably closing it out, we're going to start slowing down on the hunting. So it ended in a really cool way.
Right. That's awesome, man. Yeah. I have a buddy of mine, Tim. I had him on a couple weeks ago. He's been taking his nephews out a bunch, and his goal, he killed a real good deer in the plains. And I don't think he filled his PA tag yet. I know he'd been chasing around a couple of deer specifically in PA that he was kind of shucking and jiving with, but his goal in PA was really to try to get his two nephews a deer, whether it was a buck or a doe or whatever. And one of them killed in
I want to say like the early part of October, but he had like a funky hunt. Like I think he missed one, and I think maybe he stuck one that got away, and then he finally got one down, and then his other nephew like took it all the way to late season, and I love seeing that, man, because those kids, they just maybe it's they don't have as much experience, and they haven't ridden all the ups and the downs necessarily, and so the grinding to them is fun. You know what I mean? It's like, they don't know any difference, where it's like, you've been doing it for a while. Like take me, for example, like that deer gets killed, takes the wind out of my sails, and I'm like, son of a, you know what I mean? It's like where, you're 14 years old, you don't know anybody. You're like, well, just on to the next one. Let's just do it,
Yeah, man, I see it with my little niece. My niece is 7 now. She was 6 last year. And here in Arkansas, you have to be 6 to legally hunt.
Okay.
And, she turned 6 last year. And my brother Josh, as soon as she was 6, he got her in the woods. And she, unfortunately for her, I guess, she doesn't really know any better. Hunting's just, that's all she knows, and she loves it. And like if she's not in school, she's up before daylight asking her dad, let's go. So like,
Right.
He's with her all year long when she can. And
Right.
she knows that she has 6 tags in Arkansas, and she's bound and determined to try to fill her 6 tags every year. And this year she got her 2 bucks, but didn't get her does, and she was upset. She didn't fill her 4 does, and she was upset. She wanted to get those does, but
Right.
it's fun watching the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something about that pure joy, right? It's untainted, that's the part with anything, right? It's like whether you're watching kids compete in sports or whatever it is, right? It's like that, they don't have the weight of the world yet that they feel, so it's just all natural, elation and just,
it just reminds me of Saturday when I was just as excited as Mason was, but and you'll see it. I've actually, and I promised Mason, I kind of videoed it with my phone, and I'm going to put it up in a couple of days, but man, there's nothing like that. I mean, and it just, it's awesome to see that.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, you've had, since I've known you, I've only known you a couple years, but you've had just like some epic hunts and epic stories to tell. I mean, the last podcast we did, you killed that mega that you'd been after for a couple years, and then I know we were messaging last year when I was in Kansas, like we were messaging back and forth and stuff like that. And you had an awesome hunt with Drew, your buddy Drew, who I think I met through you, actually. I think you are the one who introduced me to him. And just a heck of a guy. And I still text with him, so thank you for making that introduction.
He is one of the best hunters I've ever hunted with, hands down. He's a sharp guy.
Yeah. And you had so I haven't talked to you since like you were out in the plains. So how did was that your first trip to the plains? That trip?
That was my first time deer hunting out west. And Drew, still to this day, and I'm terrible about getting content out. I've got a lot of hunts to share, and that's a specific hunt that matter of fact it'll be the first one I get out. It should have been out last year, but that trip was awesome, man. We went out there, and I learned all this from Drew. He's a ground and pound guy, decoy guy, which is all new to me. I don't know anything about that. I'm a tree stand hunter. And anyway, we get out there and have a heck of a hunt. A couple days in, we lay eyes on an absolute giant, and kind of focus on this area, this one single area, and then all we had was public to hunt. Well, we saw this deer, of course, right adjacent to the public on a small piece of private. Like I guess you would always do. Most time they're, somewhere you can't be.
Yeah.
Well, we got on Onyx, and I've never in my life knocked on a door to ask for permission. We got on Onyx and we seen this deer, got the guy's info, and we actually met a guy in town that knew him and put us in contact with him. And we went and knocked on his door. His wife answered the door. Wife and daughter answered the door. And of course, we kind of started our spills. Like, man, we, asked if she had anybody hunting the place and saw a really good deer on it, if we could have access to hunt. And she was like, well, she's like, I'm going to have to let my husband make the call on this. And as soon as she said that, he had one of those cameras that you can talk through the doorbell.
Well, yeah, he had like one of those ring
know,
cameras or something.
security
Yeah.
type deal, yeah. So he all of a sudden starts talking through the doorbell. He's like, "Yeah, I'm watching you guys right now. We're here and we're like looking around." And anyway, he was off somewhere on the phone watching the security deal. So he's talking to us through his phone, and he had some pheasant hunters coming in from Wisconsin or something that backed out. And he was like, "Yeah, I don't mind if you guys want to go hunt that piece." And he actually gave us access to another 600 acres that he had, which we checked that out. It's kind of a, not a really good area. So we focused on that one little, is a 160 right there. And to try to make this story a little shorter, we go in looking for the deer we seen from the road. And when we get in there, we saw a deer from the road, and we make a loop around to get the wind right, and we're slipping in. There's a big cedar thicket on the north side of this property. So we're slipping in, and we bump a deer in the corner of these cedars. Think it's the deer, that we had seen from the road. So we're just kind of nonchalantly walking through these cedars, and Drew's in front of me, and Drew has a homemade decoy that he made out of a live deer, just a small 7-point buck, kind of made a big frame to where you could kind of hide two people behind it. And we're slipping through, and he's holding it, and all of a sudden he just hits the deck and says, "Buck." Well, I'm behind him, and I've got my recurve. My camera's in my pack, and the whole hunt, me and him talked about this. Drew's a very successful hunter, and Drew likes to kill big deer. I just like to kill deer. I don't have to have a big deer to make me happy. If I've got my stick bow, any 4-legged animal, I'm happy to take if I get an opportunity. All relative to the situation, the hunt.
Right.
But on this trip, I was going to take any deer that give me an opportunity in this wide open country with my recurve. So when he says buck, I've hit my knees behind him, and I'm grabbing my arrow, trying to knock arrow. I get an arrow knocked, and I ease up and I look up over the top of the decoy, and all I see is horns. And without a shadow of a doubt, just a millisecond, I realize I'm looking at the largest deer I've ever seen in my life. And I know I'm never going to get an opportunity to shoot at this deer. I know my buddy up front is like, he's about to be full throttle on this deer. So I immediately put my bow down and start grabbing my camera out of my pack, get the camera turned on. And Drew is in the process of trying to stake. He's got little stakes on that decoy, and it's so windy that day. And this deer's bedded, and he's just looking at us. And he gets the decoy staked down, and I get the camera up and get the camera on. And when I get zoomed in, I'll never forget, I zoomed in on this deer, and I lost my breath, everything. This thing's so big. I mean, he's well over 200-inch deer. And Drew's trying to get a range on him, and Drew's a very good shot with the bow, very above average shot with the bow, and shoots long distance. And this deer is 76 yards. He gets full draw, and he's trying to go to the left. He goes back to the right, can't get a shot. There's some cedars in the way. The deer's already stands up now. He knows something's up, but the decoy kept his attention long enough to kind of give Drew an opportunity. So Drew kind of panicked just a little bit. I mean, he kind of just jumped up real quick and tried to go over the top of him. When we did, he shocked that deer, and that deer hauled butt. And when he takes off, man, it's like he's running off with a rocking chair on the top of his head. And we got some pretty cool footage of him. And oh man, the footage is awesome. And you just see on Drew's face how, just like, did that just happen? Like, right. I mean, it was unreal and sickening all at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
He scored all on the biggest deer me and him have ever seen in our lives, and needless to say, we don't get that deer. We don't see that deer again. But I guess about 3 days later, we stay in that area. We're after that deer specifically, trying to kill that deer, and set up on the drainage that he run off on. This is about 3 days later. And we're set up behind that decoy on the ground, and it's about 3:00. We look up, I see a decent deer kind of coming down the drainage going west. And we start calling at him, hit the grunt, and then this deer turns and looks, and this deer's a magnum. And at the time, and so I'm used to these Arkansas deer, not used to seeing these giant body deer in Kansas. I'm thinking this deer is like a 135, 140 inch type deer, which is a heck of a deer to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, that's a pretty nice buck out there. So we start calling at him and get his attention. He didn't want no part of us. And then all of a sudden I look out of the left corner of my eye and I see a deer coming straight to our decoy. And he's just a small 2.5-year-old 7-point. And he is locked in, got his licking his lips, sees a decoy. He's committed. And he's coming in and I'll never forget, he's locked in and Drew's like, I start getting my bow, I start getting ready, and he's like, Are you gonna shoot this little deer? I'm like, heck yeah, I'm about to shoot this deer. Like, I'm gonna take any opportunity I get. I was like, maybe you can kill this deer right out here.
Right.
So this 7-point comes in and he starts as soon as he gets, you know how they do, trying to circle down. And he gets about 20 yards and I make a shot and hit him just a little bit back, knew it was a kill shot. And he takes off running and I look back out there and this other big deer, he's locked down with a doe out there. And to make a long story short, we get to looking at him. This deer is a giant. And I'm like, Drew, you got to kill it. Like, you got to kill this deer. And he's like, you think? I'm like, dude, this is a giant. So he had his heart set on that giant that we seen.
Right.
Like, he wanted that one. But anyway, to make a long story short, this deer's locked down on a doe out there, had no clue that we were in the world, no clue that I just shot that other deer. And this deer is 96 yards, and Drew dials down to 96, and you couldn't have walked up there and put that arrow any better in that deer. He heart rocked him from 96. Deer runs 40 yards and flips over dead. And he's a 170 inch. I don't even know how many points it had. Just a magnum.
Yeah, I saw a picture of that thing, dude. That thing is a freak.
Magnum.
Yeah.
When we got on that deer, to me, he looked like a thoroughbred horse laying on the
Aren't
ground.
they big, dude?
Oh my gosh, that deer! This is the largest deer personally I've ever seen in my life. I'm used to these Arkansas deer, and a big deer in Arkansas, mature deer, is 225, 230 pounds. Something above average is 250. I've seen 260s killed. That's way above average here in Arkansas. That deer was probably close to 300 pounds, probably. I mean, just a mac.
Yeah, dude, it's almost like they're a different freaking species out there. Because I know when I killed mine, that was the first thing that I noticed, like in dragging him out of the CRP, was just like, good Lord. I was like, dude, this body, like how, like just big overall, like length, girth, like every bit of it, And PA has some decent bodied deer, but nothing compared to that. And I mean, I saw some big deer while I was in Iowa too, and like it doesn't even compare to that. Like I think that area has the biggest bodied deer outside of going up like north into Canada or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I've just never seen anything like that. Just the size.
Yeah, you brought it up like it's almost a different species. That's exactly what I said. Man, that is not even the same animal I hunt in Arkansas. Like that is an animal. Yeah,
no. And it'll deceive you too in terms of like the size of their racks. You know what I mean?
I thought he was 130, 140 inch deer, and he was 170, a little over 170 inch deer. So
yeah,
he threw me for a loop for sure.
Yeah, because you're used to seeing, like PA or wherever, like 130, 140 inch deer, and like the rack in comparison to the body is just,
right.
That's your frame of reference, right? And you get to some of these places, where you get just like a big old mature plains buck, or and he's got a 170 inch rack or whatever. Because I even know like the one that I shot, like I didn't think he was as big as he was, after I shot him. Even whenever he was on the ground, like I still didn't think that he was, would score what he scored, But yeah, that's wild, man. That's I remember I was texting with you, and I think maybe we even had a phone call. Like
you were out there that same year, right?
Yeah, we were out there the same year because I feel like one of us called, like either Drew called me or I called Drew or you called me, because we were both driving.
Yeah,
and we were talking. That's what all I remembered was that I had sent you guys a text, and then we had a quick phone call as one of us was driving, and he sent me a picture of that buck. And that was a good year for killing good deer.
It was. That was
nice. And so that same year, though. Well, so hold on. So I want to back up just like to the plains, because that was a whole new experience for you, right? Because that was the third year that I had been out in the plains.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious for you, you know, being a guy from Arkansas, first time kind of hunting that kind of country, all on the ground, you know, what was your biggest kind of learning kind of curve or learning experience in that approach?
You know, I learned a lot from him, honestly. And I was really, so Drew loves to cover ground, stay on the ground. There was a couple spots where I was like, man, you know, maybe we ought to hang out here, put a tree. There's a couple trees in some of those drains, you know, to hang and hunt. And, but he's like, no, dude, if I can see him, I can kill him. So we're going to stay on the ground. We're going to stay on our feet. So, you know, you play to win like you always do. And he loves to use that decoy. So we use that decoy every day, you know, and you just got to get one in the right situation. If he wants to play that game, like if he locks in, he's coming. And it was like that young deer I killed. He locked in, dude, he come in on a rope.
Yeah.
And I've never killed a deer like that. And I always tell anybody, I hunt for the experience. I never hunt for a giant rack or anything like that. Every hunt I go on is different, and I just love the experience. And when that deer locked in and I knew he was coming in, I was like, man, this is cool. And he asked, he said, man, that deer's not near as big as that one out there. You gonna shoot him? Absolutely, I'm about to shoot him. Like he's coming in. I'm not gonna be out here but a week, you know. And I was tickled with that bull.
That's just it, dude. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I love the way you hunt, is just because of that aspect of it. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're killing does, pigs, bucks, you know. And that's why I always like talking to you and getting your perspective on things, because you truly go after it for the experience. And I was stoked that because a lot of times, you know, my first trip out there, you know, I would have, anything that was going to get me fired up, I was going to shoot. That was my mindset going in there. Like, I wasn't going out, even that third year, I wasn't going out to kill a big deer. I was going out, like, I was committed to do it on the ground and decoy, rattle, you know. That was how I wanted to do it. And whatever got me fired up was what I was going to shoot, you know. And I screwed up on deer a lot smaller than the one that I shot, you know what I mean, that I would have shot those had I not screwed it up, you know what I mean, the years prior and stuff. You know, but sometimes you just got to take your beatings for a little while, man. I love that decoying too, because I decoyed the first year I was out there. Similar situation. My buddy Chad and I went out, and we took like an old taxidermy deer head and like made a very similar mount, right?
Yep.
And then last year when I went out, I actually ended up using a heads-up decoy and decoyed in like a nice little like rack 8 from like 60 yards away and flashed it. But you're right. Like, you got to get one that's willing to play ball, because they're all a little bit different. You know what I mean?
You know, that heads up decoy, we used it a lot, especially when we were covering a lot of ground before we saw the deer. We kind of keyed in on. What the homemade decoy we had, man, it's super, super heavy. I mean, it's a 2-man job. I mean, it is a 2-man job. You're not going out there with that one by yourself.
Right.
And, you know, hindsight's 20/20, but looking back, when he was trying to get drawed on that deer, you know, if I would have just not been so worried about taking the camera and trying to get that deer on camera, if I would have helped him with that decoy, because he was doing that all himself, trying to get it all set up. If I'd have just helped him, he could have got in position to get a shot. He probably would have killed that deer. Wow. And, you know, we joke about it all the time. You know, he rags me. He's like, yeah, you worried about that camera. You should have been worried about trying to hold that decoy. And, you know, but in all honesty, you know, it worked out. I think it worked out pretty cool anyway. And you know, and we tried to see if, and that was one reason I did delay that video 1 year, is because we had intentions of going back and trying to draw that unit again. And we never saw that deer floating around. I mean, if this deer would have gotten killed, he
would have known about it.
He was every bit of well over 210 inches without a shadow of a doubt.
Wow.
And we never saw him, you know, on social media or anything like that, advertised around. So, you know, this deer probably made it. And the guy that gave us the permission to hunt the property, he was going to give us permission to hunt the next year. Wow. So we wanted to get back in there and hunt him. Well, the next year rolls around, we try to draw, and none of us draw that. Wow. You know, it's all lottery there in Kansas. Yeah. And then I wanted to go back this year. Drew actually went back this year, hunted another unit, because we saw some really good deer that year in that unit, but we didn't see a lot of deer.
Mm-hmm.
And he hunted a different unit this year, drew the unit, killed a really nice, it was a big mature 104, mid 140s 8-point, really nice deer. Same way on the ground, decoy, public land, really nice deer.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of messed myself up. I listened to somebody, and I got some false information about Kansas, about the group draw.
Mm-hmm.
And if I would have put in with Drew and his dad and the guys I put in with the year before, I'd have been on the same. I have, I guess, 2 points in Kansas now. I would have drawn with them, and my brother wanted to go, so I was like, well, heck, I'll just put me and Josh in on the side. Well, my brother never applied last year, so I was told they draw off the person with the most points, and that's false. They
It's
draw
the lowest points.
the lowest points. So
Yeah.
I didn't draw Kansas this year.
Right.
So my plan is to hopefully draw next year is my hopes. But it worked out okay. We ended up, instead of going to Kansas this year, we ended up going to Illinois and hunted some big woods public up there and had an awesome time up there learning that area.
Yeah, man. I was gonna ask you about that, because you did the plains thing, right, which is a whole different ball game, right?
Yeah.
And then coming from where you're at in Arkansas, you're going to big woods public land piece in Illinois. So what was the kind of shift there? Like how was it different for you, or like what was your kind of takeaway from that?
I learned there, and we had a big group of us, and I learned a lot from some hill hunters up there that taught me. I'm just a flatlander, and yeah, man, just learning how the deer navigate those big hills was the main thing that I learned. And when I learned this from some other great hunters up there, and then once you kind of catch on and figure out what they're doing, in all honesty, it kind of just the terrain features in the hills makes it a little easier to look at. Like you can look at a topo map.
Yeah.
Like, man, these guys, I learned a lot. They would look at a topo map and be like, yep, I'm going right here, or I'm going right here. And they would go and see deer.
Yep.
And that was just crazy to me, because where I'm from,
Right.
you cannot do that.
Right.
Because there is no topo lines on the areas we hunt. It's just flat. So where I'm from in the big woods, you have to get boots on the ground and cover ground and cover ground and cover ground just to get the lay of the land. Well, up there in those big hills, and I call them mountains to me, you can get a lot of information just by reading the topo map, looking at your Onyx, and I that was a really cool thing to learn, and it helped me a lot. And I kind of fast forward, I hunted Illinois this season. Well, last year I hunted Indiana.
Okay.
The same way. It hunted the same way as Illinois. And man, had a really good hunt up there on big public. And to make a long story short, I did not kill a deer, but I had a magnum, probably a mid-50s deer within 8 steps. And me and him had a standoff for like 4 minutes, and I just couldn't get the shot off. Which, it's all about perspective. I look at it, I didn't kill that deer, but I did put myself within 6 yards of him. And, had I not been trying to, I love to self-film a lot of my hunts. Had I not been trying to get him on camera, if I would just focused on drawing when he come out, I probably could have killed that deer. But, it was still an awesome experience, and learned a lot, and then kind of used that when I went to Illinois this year and had a really good hunt in Illinois. So, it's kind of like what everybody says, every day you're out there hunting, you're learning, and, it just helps you in the future.
That's just it, man. Like a lot of the times when we view, maybe in the moment we view things as, messing up or whatever case, and maybe we do, right? Maybe we did mess something up, but there's always, when you get a chance to kind of step back from it and look at it, you can really kind of look at places that really kind of help you evolve your game, if you will, right? Because I know for me, just speaking on this year specifically, because that happened to me whenever I was hunting the plains for multiple years. I had a lot of missed opportunities and get busted drawing on the ground. Didn't stay in the shadow enough, like just silly things, like deer got downwind of me because I didn't realize he was going to circle over here. I thought I had something blocking his way to get through, just silly stuff like that, right? And then finally, at the end of the day, it's all those screw ups that I made, probably the reason why I ended up killing the deer I killed last year, because it was, I figured out how not to screw those things up, you know. And then this year, chasing that deer that I chased, you know, as long as I chased him, I was like, man, it's hard to find a better teacher than an old mature mountain buck.
Yeah.
You know, a 6.5-year-old deer to chase around the woods, you know, for 30 days, you know.
Yeah.
I was like, you know, you won't find a better education or a better teacher than that, you know. And so
I listen to you guys on those big woods mountain deer in y'all's area, and I know that, you know, y'all don't have, you know, the deer densities, you know, probably a lot slimmer than you know, obviously the part of the country I live in. And, you know, when I see guys that get it done on those big, giant public tracts of mountain land, I'm always impressed by that, because I know what it takes down here on Big Woods Public, and to lower the deer density and probably, you know, tenfold the acreage and the mountains. Like, you know, that's just awesome when a man can go out there and get that done. It's pretty
yeah, it's my one buddy told me I was nuts. He was like, man, he's like, what you're trying to do ain't for the faint of heart. He was like, he was like, Godspeed, you know. It was basically all he had for me.
You know, and I know there's guys that go out there, man, they do it with their traditional equipment, and that's like, man, that's, you know, that's some hunting right there.
Yeah, that's the one thing I fell back on. I'm trying to fix my chair here. That I fell back on was, so I did pick up, you know, traditional bow this year, been shooting it, you know, consistently, and the plan was to shoot that this year, was to use that this year. And then whenever I ended up kind of, you know, learning what I needed to learn about that deer, I had a hard time justifying taking the traditional bow out for my first season with that caliber of deer on the line. You know,
totally,
that was
totally understandable. Yeah.
You know, but you know, it's but so now it's like I don't have any excuses. So now it's like traditional bow kind of going forward is the plan.
Well, you know, you don't have to just go full throttle. You ease right into it and get your confidence built up. And once you build that confidence, and I know what it's like. When I started, you know, I'll never forget the feeling when I first took it to the tree, and I was like,
"Did you feel naked?"
Yeah, absolutely. You do. You're sitting there and you're asking yourself, like, what am I about to do with this?
Mm-hmm.
And then all it takes is to, you know, get your first deer, and you realize, man, I can do this. And then you get that confidence built up, and then from there, you know, that's the hard part, is getting your confidence built up.
Yeah.
So, and then again, you don't have to be 100%. You can, you know, that's one thing I guess about hunting today is, man, it's all a personal journey. You're just supposed to do what makes you happy. It doesn't matter if you want to hunt with your rifle or your crossbow or your compound or recurve, man. Just do what makes you happy, and don't worry about what everybody else thinks. It's just do your own thing.
That's great, man. Yep. Yeah, I was talking to a buddy of mine about that because he asked me, specifically, he's like, do you think, you know, when you start taking your longbow with you consistently, like you're gonna pick your compound back up, you know? And I said, look, I was like, if I'm hunting somewhere where I think, you know, if I'm chasing a specific deer and I'm hunting somewhere and I don't think that I can get right on him in longbow range, and I feel like I might have to take a 30 or 40 yard shot, right? I was like, then I'll probably take the compound, you know what I mean? I was like, if I feel like that's the only way I can kill him, you know, I was like, if I feel like I got the things that I need to create the setups that I need to set up to get like within range with a longbow, I was like, then I'll use the longbow. I was like, I still enjoy shooting a compound, you know. Yep. I was like, so I don't think I'll ever kind of just put it completely on the back burner. I was like, certainly for things like elk and stuff like that, I was like, I probably will always use a compound, just because I was like, I don't know that
I can be a prime example for that. So I'm a very passionate, dedicated traditional bow hunter. I love it. And that's not saying that maybe this next season I wake up and I want to take my 243. If I want to do that, I'll do that. I don't care what anybody thinks. But I know what it feels like to work for it, and when you get that satisfaction, there is no feeling like it. And I keep just wanting that feeling again and again. So that keeps me with the stick bow. But you brought up elk. I have been out west, I think 5 years now, with an elk tag on public land and taking my stick bow, and I have not killed an elk yet.
Mm-hmm.
And this last season, I went with Drew, and I thought about it all summer. I was like, man, like I'm ready to kill an elk. Like I've had some close encounters with the stick bow, and Drew's he loves to shoot all summer, shoots every day, and we ended up rigging up a compound for me to go out there and shoot. And I was going to be bound and determined to do whatever I could to get my first Western public land elk. And so I went out there with the compound. And man, we were in the elk, and I had an unfortunate event happen with a family member. I was 3 days in the hunt, and I ended up having to fly back to Arkansas on an emergency deal. So things happen, life happens. So we were in them. Drew killed a nice bull the next morning. I caught the flight out. He texted me the next morning, hour after daylight, big bull on the ground. So, the whole elk deal's been kicking my butt.
Me too, buddy.
5 years, and it's going to happen one of these days. And I'm not going to get up. So
just got to keep chopping wood and carrying water, man. That's it. You know what I mean? It's like I've been out 3 different times now, and I've been close. Had one close this year, and I chased the one bull around the mountain, I think for 4 days straight. Chased the same bull in and out of this drainage. He was just smarter than me. He was better than me. I saw him once. Actually, I saw him once at like 15 yards, and he just crept up over this little cliff edge, and I had no clue he was there. Like my buddy and I were sitting down, like taking a break. Yeah. We were calling down in this drainage. I knew where he was at, but you just never knew like what part of the drainage he was bedding in. Cause like I was in northern Idaho, so big woods, dark timber, like very limited glassing. But we found this one piece where we could glass a little bit. And we hunted the one side of it the one day. Long story short is like we got this bull to crank off. We got probably within 60 yards of him. We could smell where he had been pissing on the ground. Like just, when you get there and you're like, he was just here, because he was chuckling. How when they chuckle, they'll pee all over themselves and stuff. Yeah. And he went down in this drainage. And so the next day we ended up moving our camp and looped all the way around this mountain on the other side, because like there was some glassing potential over on the other side, and we couldn't see down into that drainage, but we could be up on this knob, maybe like 2 miles away from him. And when he would pipe off in that drainage, like we could hear him, right? And so we basically would sit at that knob and wait, and he would crank. And as soon as he would crank, we would beeline. And as we get closer, try to like basically figure out where exactly in the drainage is he bedded, and as we would get closer, we'd be able to kind of, tell with more accuracy where we needed to go in, because if we went up above him with the thermals, we were going to be screwed, right? So we needed to get in below him and work our way up. And just like clockwork, man, every day when we would get just about close enough to where we could like pinpoint where he was at, he would shut up and not talk anymore, right? Yeah. And so we did that for 4 days, and then finally we just busted down in and got right on top of him, and he was bugling, and we kind of knew where he was at. And then he stopped even earlier than usual, because usually he would stop bugling by like 8:30, 9 o'clock. And this morning he stopped around 8, and we sat down to see if we could get him to crank off again or if he would make any noise. And he gave out one like small like bed bugle, so we knew he was bedded, and we were like, all right, we think he's in here. And then we sat down to take a break, and as we're sitting there, we just saw like tips of his antlers pop up over the edge of this cliff face that we were sitting on the edge of, and then just spun, boom, and was gone down the drainage. And that was it. That was the only time I freaking saw him, was that. And he was like maybe 15 yards from us.
Yeah.
And I was
northern Idaho?
Northern Idaho, yeah. Yeah. And I was just one of those things where, a 900-pound animal, man, when they want to not make a noise, they don't make a noise.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. I noticed that whenever we had something get close. And we actually, this last season on the second day, we made a setup and called a little, and I was actually out front. Drew was calling in the back, just kind of blind deal, And man, I looked up after 6 or 7 minutes, and I mean, he was coming through like just. It's amazing how they can walk up on you and not make a sound. He slipped right up there, and he was out there about 40, and he started going around the rim, and he kind of got below me there, and he knew just something quite wasn't right, we got super close to him, but just couldn't close the deal. So
right, man. But speaking of elk, man, you had the same year you went out to the Midwest or out to the West for whitetails. Didn't you have you had an elk hunt also in Arkansas, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. We did a elk hunt in Arkansas. That was last year.
So
And
just for people, for people that are listening, like how rare is that?
oh man, super rare. So, and I'm trying to think. I think so. It's a draw, and I had been putting in for. It's totally random. I've been putting in for 14 to 15 years, something like that. Just put in every year. And last year, on the area I hunted, and I drew the public land either sex tag. I think they give out total in Arkansas. I think they give out 5 either sex tags and maybe 10 to 15 cow tags. So around 20, they gave out 20 last year. And just to let everybody know, the Arkansas elk hunt that we went on, and I've been out west on public land for the last 4 or 5 years, either with a tag or going out there and just hanging out. It's a completely different hunt. And we went into the Arkansas hunt like we did, hunting out west. And the bulls in Arkansas, when I killed my bull, it was Halloween Day. And I say bull, it was actually a spike that I killed. We were trying to call, and these elk would just not respond. It's late in the year. In Arkansas, they're doing their thing, which they actually do it later than they do out west. But Arkansas, typically late September, early October, they're pretty vocal. So this was kind of on the tail end of the rut in Arkansas. And in these WMAs where these elk are at, the Game and Fish go in and they plant the tops of the hills with they'll actually plant them, kind of like food plots for them.
Okay, yeah.
So these elk at that time, they're coming to those tops at some point during the evening. So when we went on the first day, I went up there and scouted the week before and never even saw an elk, saw some sign. And we get up there for the hunt 3 days prior to when it comes in. And I've got the season for my tag was, I think, 5 days you had to hunt. We got up there 3 days before, and dude, it just rained crazy for 3 days. Like, we couldn't get out and do much scouting. So on the first day of the hunt, I think we covered like 12 or 13 miles just, looking for elk, and we were not in the right area. And never seen an elk, nothing. And then the very last hour of that day, we went to a completely different area and glassed some elk about probably half a mile away on another canyon across there. And a really nice 5x5. And this tag, you can use any weapon you prefer. I could have used a rifle if I want to. I mean, we actually had to wear hunter's orange.
Okay.
So we decided to start there the next day, where we seen this bull and he had 6 or 7 cows with him. So we go in the next morning, and we literally are walking down the ridge, and right over the rim, I believe Drew was out front, and he just kind of stopped everybody. There was 3 of us, actually. He stopped everybody. Like, oh, there they are out there. And we're literally 120, 130 yards from this bull. This is the same one we'd seen the night before. So we try to loop around, get downwind, and try to make a calling sequence. And they weren't having any of that. They went straight the other way. So we let everything calm down for a little while, and then we slip up there, and there's a big main trail where they're coming out on the top of this knoll. And I just kind of went whitetail minded and was like, man, we could probably hang a tree stand right here, and I probably could get a shot, with my bow. And we had all intentions of trying to get that big bull, and me and a buddy went up the tree. I was actually in a saddle, in a tethered saddle, and about an hour before dark, a spike elk comes out at the end of the lane down there, and for whatever reason, he wanted to come and try to exit the top of that field on that trail we were set up on. And when that spike come and gave me that broadside opportunity at -4 yards, I couldn't pass that up. So
no, dude.
I sent one right through him, and that's the only elk I've ever killed, and that was an Arkansas public land elk.
How awesome is that, dude? Like,
it was cool, man. It was a cool experience, and
that's a once in a lifetime experience.
Pretty
It's
much.
like
It's not it's very uncommon, but it is there. I mean, there's potential I could draw that tag again. I actually know a couple people that have drawn that tag more than once.
Really?
So it's just a total random deal, but the odds of me ever drawing that tag again are slim to none,
Right, yeah. I put in every year for PA. I usually just buy points right now. And then, my plan is at some point to actually put in to try to get the tag, just building up the points and hoping that when I finally do start to try to get the tag that, that I have enough points that gives me actually a chance.
Yeah.
To hunt in PA, because I just think it would be cool to hunt elk in my home state.
That's one thing I think about. I've struggled out west big time, and I did think it was kind of cool for my first elk to be in my home state.
Heck yeah, dude.
So that's pretty cool. But again, totally different type hunt than your backpack hunt out west for sure.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man. I mean, you can't, not being from a western state, like you can't beat killing an elk in your home state. Especially just like how rare it is. How big's the herd in Arkansas? Do you have any idea what the numbers are?
I couldn't tell you exactly what the numbers are, but it's a fairly decent herd.
Is it?
But I do know what the elk director told me last year, that the numbers have actually declined a little bit. So actually, I drew the tag last year, and this year I actually knew a guy that drew a tag, and they did not give out as many tags this year. I think they actually decreased the tags by maybe 6 or 7 elk, or maybe more than that. So
interesting.
Something about the herd was on decline a little bit, so they didn't give out as many tags this year.
Yeah, I know well, I don't know exactly the number of tags that they give out in PA now. I know that it's grown over the years because the elk herd, at least the last time I looked, was pretty solid. I was always curious. I actually did a podcast with some of the guys from the Game Commission at one point, and just was curious. They're in a particular area in PA, like I think Benazet is like the main town that people kind of would know of. But it's like in the Allegheny Mountains, so it's a bunch of like unbroken, huge tracts of public land. And I was curious, like, if they would ever think of putting them in the eastern part of PA, because when you get up in like the northeastern part of PA, up near the border of New York, like there's some pretty big tracts of public, and it's pretty remote up there, pretty rural. And they said even with like how remote that is, and like there is some significant pieces of public land up there, they said it's just not enough to like place another herd there and not have this concerns of, well, their biggest concern is elk card problems, like, traffic problems and stuff like that. And they were like, chances of hitting an elk where they are in Allegheny is very slim. If you put them in the east, and even in those big public pieces, like chances of someone hitting one with their car, like significantly increases. Right. And he's like, it's like hitting a cow, would not be good, but man, that's a cool experience. And like when I saw you, get an opportunity to do that hunt, I was stoked for you, number one. And number two, when I saw that you filled the tag, I was pumped for you because, being able to kill an elk in your home state is just super rad. And then, in my mind, I'm thinking like, man, how cool is that? Like, that's like the coolest experience. Like, I don't know how you'd have a cooler experience. And then this year you're like hunting deer with spears. You know what I mean? And I saw that because you and I talked earlier in the year trying to get together to do a podcast. And it was the beginning of hunting season. We were both busy. Yep. And you're like, I'm working on something. I'm trying to work on something cool, and and I was like, what is he up to? And then I saw the picture and I was like, oh man. I was like,
I think we actually talked. I was probably in the middle of trying to get it done. It took me, man, I think, I'm trying to think when I killed that deer. It was mid-October. I probably hunted 3.5 weeks before I finally was able to make it happen.
So give everyone a little bit, because you started giving me a little bit of the background, right? Because people probably listening have probably never heard of anybody hunting a deer with a spear in the lower 48.
So
right?
Yeah. So to my knowledge now, I think it's legal to hunt with a spear in Alaska and now Arkansas. At one point in time, it was legal to hunt in Alabama with a spear, and I think Alabama did away with it. So to try to preface this a little bit, a couple of years ago, I was in contact with a couple of people from the Game and Fish and was trying to get the ball rolling on, trying to get a spear as a legalized weapon to hunt with in Arkansas. And going back, I met Tim Wells years back, and obviously most people know who Tim Wells is. He's a world-renowned spear hunter. And Tim was super nice about it. And it's like, man, I'm all for it. Like if there's anything I can do to help, let me know. I'll come down, try to give a presentation to the game of fish, explain to them how lethal the spear can be when used correctly, and was, a really big help in getting it done. And then we had kind of there for the first 2 years, they talked about it, but couldn't really get the ball rolling. And then this last year, I've got a friend, and his dad's now a commissioner with the Arkansas Game of Fish and a very passionate hunter. And he was really interested about the spear and kind of got Mr. Bill in contact with Tim, and Tim come down and gave a presentation, and man, them guys did a great job. The next thing you know, this season, it is legal to hunt with a spear in Arkansas now.
That's awesome.
The beginning of this bow season. So our bow season runs it comes in the end of September, and our bow season actually runs to the end of February. And you can use a spear as a legal weapon all the way through the end of February here in Arkansas.
Wow, that's awesome, man. What got you interested in a spear as a weapon?
Well, I love the traditional bow hunting, and one of the main reasons I really love it is because of the challenge. I mean, it's extremely tough, and I'm always just looking for another challenge. And when that become legal, I was full set. Like I want to try this. I want to do this.
Right.
So, I had all intentions. I really, and kind of joked with Tim about this. So we also had a cool thing this year in Arkansas that the Game of Fish did. We now have an early season velvet hunt here in Arkansas. So there's a few days early September that you can actually kill a buck in velvet. Well, Tim had actually come down and got with the guy, and they was going to do some hunting, and it kind of actually worked out. When I told you earlier I had to come back from that elk hunt, it was that weekend. So Tim was trying to be the first guy to kill one in Arkansas with a spear, and I went and visited him with that weekend, and we were just kind of joking. I was like, man, I couldn't hunt that weekend, had things going on, and I just kind of ragged him. I was like, man, I hope I kind of hope you have some bad luck. I'd like
Hope you missed.
Yeah, I hope you have some bad luck. I'd like to try to be the first guy to try to do it. Well, it was kind of funny. That was on a Saturday, and the next day, a friend of mine sends me a picture, and there was a guy from Southwest Arkansas that killed a really, really nice deer with a spear velvet buck during that velvet hunt. So he was the first guy to get it done. And then I believe there was a doe killed toward the beginning of archery season. And then, like I say, I killed mine about mid-October, and kind of like I was telling you earlier. Now, I mean, there were a few deer, quite a few deer this year with the spear in Arkansas. So, it was a pretty neat deal.
What so did you throw javelin or anything like growing up? Like
no, I didn't. No,
because when I saw that, first thing was whenever I saw that you were doing it, I was like, my first thought, not even joking, I was like, oh, that checks out. I was like, John, he's going to use a spear. I was like, 100%, it's like, that makes sense. So, and then the second thing was, my thought was like, man, I wonder if he threw javelin or something in high school or some shit.
No. And that's, so like Tim, he was, javelin thrower and all that. So, he big into all that, but no, I wasn't a javelin thrower or anything, but, here in Arkansas, and I, to try to explain how we do all this, me and a buddy, like Tim, if I don't know if you're familiar with any of his spears, but he mass produces some spears, and they're really great spears. But my idea, the way I wanted to try to get one killed with a spear here in Arkansas on private land, it's legal to bait here in Arkansas. So obviously I was going to try to bait one directly under my stand. So me and a buddy at work, my really good buddy Jason, he's really good back there in the shop, and we were back there brainstorming one day, and I was like, man, it'd be cool if we just made our own spears, So we were back there jacking around the shop one day and just kind of talking about what we might want to do, and we were trying to figure out, what would be the best material to make one out of. And we kind of got to looking around, and there was some rebar laying over there in the corner. And I was like, man, why don't we use this rebar here as a handle and figure out what we're going to do for a blade? And he's like, I got an idea for a blade. And there's an old seed treater back there at the store. And we took the handle off the old seed treater, which is just a flat piece of metal. and grinded it down and made a 9-inch blade out of it and welded it to the 1/2-inch rebar. And that piece of rebar, 7 foot long, was actually pretty straight. And we got it built pretty good, and we got to practicing with it. And man, that thing, when I would chunk it, I mean, it would just hit right where I was looking, out to about 5 yards. Anything past that was a little far for it, because it's probably, I don't know how much exactly it weighs, but it's really heavy.
Right.
So the idea was to get one right under me, and just the sheer weight of that spear alone, even though I think it was just instinct. Even though I did want to chunk it, I really didn't have to chunk it. I could just kind of guide it, and that was plenty enough weight to penetrate, through a mature deer or anything for that matter. So I've got one piece of property that, for the first time actually this year, I was actually able to legally bait on a private piece. And I really thought it wouldn't take me long doing that. Just to be honest, I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist or a crazy woodsman to go out and pull corn out under a tree and try to get a deer to come in. Let's just call it like it is,
Right.
So, but it was a lot tougher than I thought, because a deer approaching your bait pile obviously is trying to come downwind and yawing every time. So I had to change my setup up a couple times, and there was one deer in this area that was a mature deer, only just one deer, and he wasn't a giant deer, but he was, man, if I could get him close enough with a spear, I was, going to be more than tickled to get him. And one Wednesday evening after work, I got out of work early, the wind was perfect, and I had a bunch of pictures of this deer, really kind of thought I knew right where he was bedding, so I kind of placed my setup perfect to where if I could get the wind right, maybe he would come from the bed straight to my setup and not wind me. And for whatever reason, that evening, he come in. I couldn't ask for a better situation. He comes straight under me. He actually looked up one time, and I thought I was busted, and I just froze and just prayed, like, man, come on, just let me get one, just let me get this off. And he put his head back down, and man, I reared back and let him have it, and it was pretty wild.
Nice, dude. How fired up were you about that, man?
Man, so, obviously I get pretty fired up after I make a good shot or whatever, but that was, man, it was more of a kind of like a humbling experience, honestly. It was more, it's hard to even explain it. I videoed it all and got it on video and going to put that out soon, but it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, there's some of those experiences, right? Like you're kind of hitting on it, where maybe they all mean something, right? But certain ones maybe mean a little bit. I don't want to say mean a little bit more, because it sounds like I'm diminishing the deer, but that's not what I'm trying to do. But that the experience maybe, or the like the challenge of it maybe means more because of like what you're attempting to do, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And where it hits you a little bit different.
Yep. And that's with all hunts. And like I was talking about earlier, man, it's all about the experience. And like you just said, every hunt, for me, I guess I can only speak for myself, it just hits different depending on the difficulty level, where I'm at, what weapon I'm using. It all hits different. And that's what I think a lot of people don't understand is, hunting doesn't have to be this. It doesn't have to be that. And it's people's perspective that gets messed up. Like, man, I love it all. It doesn't matter if, I'm fortunate. I've got a lot of buddies that have some pristine places here in Arkansas that they invite me all the time to come, and man, I can go see 20 deer hunt if I want to. But for me, to get the satisfaction I want, I may go do that one day. I may go with them. I'm out, I want to go see a bunch of deer, take it easy, and that's fun. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then I also may want to wake up the next morning and go 20 minutes down the road down here and hunt some of the most highly pressured public land in southeast Arkansas and hunt for a doe. And if I kill a doe that morning, dude, I'm as fired up as if I went out there with my buddy out here on this high dollar hunting club out here and killed a 140-inch deer. I mean, it's all relative to what you're doing, but at the end of the day, you don't have to do this or have to do this. It doesn't have to be like this. It's all personal. And I take each experience and look at it different. And at the end of the day, no matter what I'm doing, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I'm out there in the woods having fun, and that's what it's supposed to be about.
That's it, dude. Yeah.
So, it's, and like I just talked about the spear. I loved it. It was awesome. I've actually killed 2 deer this year with my spear. Killed another doe. It's extremely challenging. It's a primal feeling when you do it, but I called a spade, and I killed both those deer with my spear, baiting under my tree with corn.
Mhm.
So, it was extremely hard to do it, extremely hard to make my shot, but did it take a whole lot of skill? Did it take a whole lot of woodsmanship to do that? No, it
Right.
didn't. So, a lot of people may look at it like, man, that's really hard to do, is get one with the spear. Well, let me tell you, it was easier for me to get that deer on private land over a corn pile with a spear than it is for me to take my longbow out here on this highly pressured public land and kill a doe with my longbow.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, if you kind of see where I'm going with this,
Yeah.
I take each experience different. I love to try new things. I'm not tied down to one thing. And I'm proud of that because I don't let any outside influence affect how I feel about my hunts.
Right.
And like I told you earlier, if I wake up next season and I want to go pull my 243 out of the closet that my daddy bought me when I was 13 years old and go kill me a deer with it, I'll go do that and I'll be happy with that. And I won't worry about judgment from somebody on the outside thinking, well, look at this guy. He's supposed to be a trad guy and he just shot a deer with his rifle. Like, I don't care. If I want to do that and it's legal, I'll do that.
Right.
And I'll be happy about it.
Yep. 100%, man. Like, everyone has to hunt their own hunt for their own reasons.
That's right.
Whatever their reasons are,
Yep.
And we'd be all be a lot better off if we just did that. And also we'd be a lot better off if you just let a person be what they want to be. You know what I mean? It's like,
that's exactly right. Like, I don't judge anybody on how they're hunting or anything. Like, if they're happy and it's legal, I'm happy for them. And then I just worry about, what I want to feed, what I want to chase for, to get that satisfaction. And back to the trad, that's kind of why I stick with the trad, because I know what it feels like to put in that time, put in that effort. And then when it all comes together with all the hunting I've done and killed deer the way I've killed deer and where I've killed them, for me, the personal satisfaction of getting it done with a stick bow on public land, private land, wherever, that's ultimate to me. And that's why I'm such in love with it and why I keep wanting to do it.
Right. I just think it's super cool, man, that last time we talked, I know you killed a deer with a self bow that you made.
Yep.
Right. And now you killed 2 deer with regardless of whatever the circumstances were, like you killed 2 deer with a spear that you and your buddy made, like that's cool. That's not a lot of people, would be able to do that, number one, but it's just cool that you have that intimate kind of connection with even the weapon that you were using, right? Like, that's just super cool. Man, I want to transition real quick to speaking of longbows. There's 2 things really. Like, first I want to talk about the other deer that you killed this year, the Arkansas Ghost. I read like the write-up that you did, like in terms of chasing that deer. So what was the story behind that deer? Did you have like a long history with that deer, or?
It was 2 years.
2 years?
So to that deer, last season, he showed up, I believe it was November 16th or 17th. I had a couple trail cam videos of him. I left a couple cameras up on some scrapes. I was actually gone into this area to take all my cameras out of that area and move it to another area. And I've done this before. Pulled all my cameras, checked my cards just to be sure there wasn't nothing in the area. And lo and behold, this deer's on camera with a doe making a scrape. And at the time, I thought this deer was probably a mid-50s type 10-point, which is giant for our area. And once I got that one picture of him, or video, I was dialed in. And my brother Josh and I, Josh is my best hunting buddy, my best friend. We're only a year apart, my brother. We've been together our whole lives. So another thing that I really haven't told a lot of people, I've got a big advantage because my brother is like my other half. So we hunt together. And what I mean by that is we don't always technically hunt in the tree together or hunt with each other every day. But when we're scouting, I share all my info with him and he shares all his info with me. So I always had I've kind of got two people out scouting all the time. So I've got that advantage. And when we're out, we don't hide anything from each other. And a lot of times we're hunting the same deer. And sometimes I get mad at my brothers. I'll just be honest. My brother's a better hunter than I am. He's not fluent on social media or anything like that, but he's the luckiest dude I know. And if there is one guy that I had to call to go get a deer, it would be him.
Really?
And the last 2 years, we hunted this one deer that I ended up killing this year, but the last 2 years we were on a deer together. And his lucky ass killed him the last 2 years. This year, so we hunted this deer last year, and I actually bring Drew back into this story. Me and Josh hunted him for the whole month of November. We never could put a pattern to this deer. Like, he was just all over the place. I'd catch a picture here, maybe get a trail cam picture here, like nothing I could pattern him on. The acorns last year didn't hit, so I couldn't pattern him on acorns, which is something I do a lot down here in the South. So I started getting a few pictures of him in one area where we thought he was bedding. And fast forward it was December 17th of last year. Drew come down to hunt with me that weekend, and he knew we were hunting this deer, and I was like, man, come on, we can't kill him. Maybe you'll have some luck. We'll spread out in there and maybe one of us will get lucky. So Drew comes with me that morning, and we hunt about probably 400 to 450 yards apart as the crow flies.
Mm-hmm.
And we hunted on each side of the thicket we thought this deer was bedding in. Got in there an hour before daylight. Right at daylight. I look over my right shoulder. I hear something, and he's working a scrape about 40 yards over to my right. And I immediately pick up my glasses, and I'm like, oh gosh, it's him. And this is the second time I've laid eyes on him. I'd already seen him once, couldn't get a shot at him. And he works the scrape, and then he comes around in front of me, and I'm filming this. I've got my camera, and I'm trying to film him. And man, I started grunting at him, snort wheezing, doing anything I can do to try to get him to come to me. And he didn't want no part of it. Like, had no, I guess. And you'll notice as you hunt, some deer have that personality where they're aggressive and some are not. And this dude didn't want nothing. Like, he wasn't having it.
Mm-hmm.
So he looks at me one time, and he's 40 yards wide open, broadside, and just looking my way. And I'm sitting there with my recurve, and I'm like, and this happens to me a lot. I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, if I had my compounder out here, like,
going back to what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, like, this deer's dead. Like, he's dead as a doornail. And he turns and he walks right out of my life. I never see him again. And he walks. I called Drew on the phone. I'm like, man, he's headed straight to you. Like, get ready. Within the next hour, you potentially could see him. A couple hours goes by. He doesn't see him. So I get around, slip around, get the wind right. And I'm trying to find, Drew sends me a pin shoots me a pin from Onyx to tell me where he's at. I get around to him. While I'm on my way to him, I find a giant beat out hot scrape that's coming out of that thicket that I think he went to bed in. And me and him sat there and talked, and I was like, dude, this is the spot right here. Like, he's probably going to come through here at some point. Well, there's no trees at all to get into this area. Well, Drew was hunting on the ground. He hunts out of one of those, it's a chair. I've actually got one. You might know what I'm talking about. It's a special made chair that you can sit on the ground, super comfortable. Anyway, I can't think of the name of it. But he had his chair with him, and he decided he was going to set up. Wind was perfect. He was going to set up on the ground about 40, 50 yards from that scrape, the way the wind was blowing, and kind of washed the edge of that thicket. And I told him, I said, well, I'm going to go around, and I had all my sticks and everything lock on my back. So I'm going to go around the other side and see if I can't find a tree to get up in for the rest of the evening. It's about 12 o'clock. At 1 o'clock, I had just got my top stick on the tree, and I'd come back down to get my pack and everything and throw my little lock on my back and to go back up, and he's calling me. And I look, and I answer, and he's like, I just shot him. I said, you gotta be kidding me. He's like, I just shot him, but it ain't good. He said, I hit a limb, and he said, I'm pretty 90% sure I did not make a fatal shot. I was like, all right. So I said, which way to go? And he's like, he headed back north. So he did find a little blood, and he called me within 20 minutes. And I mean, he's killed many deer. He's got tracking dogs, tracked hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deer. And he's like, he ain't dead. He ain't hurt. He said, I don't know where I hit him, but he ain't hurt. I was like, all right. I said, well, hell, you never know. Maybe he'll loop back around here. So we hunted the rest of the day, never seen him. Make a long story short, never seen him again that year. Never got another picture of him, anything. So, you know, he knows what he's talking about. I never doubted him for a second. I didn't think the deer was dead by any means, but just not seeing him again and not getting any pictures of him again, you know, it's always in the back of your mind, like, what if? So
yeah, what if he was just injured enough to where it's like a coyote's got to him or something, you know what I mean?
So I scanned the area all during the off season when I could, just to look around to see if I could find anything. Never found anything. Well, fast forward to this year.
How old is this deer, do you guess?
So I actually went down to the taxidermist the other day. He told me he thought he was anywhere. He told me he thought he was 6.5. I honestly think he was a 5.5-year-old deer.
Okay.
Because just based on his body size, he wasn't as big bodied as I expected him to be.
Okay.
But 5.5, 6.5 years old.
All right, cool.
So anyway, back to this year. You know, obviously come October, I'm hoping this deer shows back up in the area. No pictures or anything during October. Again, we have a bad acorn crop this year. Terrible. No hard mass crop whatsoever. So, in my area, that's how I get a lot of my inventory early season and on up into the season, you know, to try to figure out what's in the area. So when the scrapes started hitting, I started slinging cameras everywhere in the area on scrapes. And I get one picture on, I believe it was November 26th or 27th of this year. My brother, I won't forget, my brother and my dad were sitting around the campfire, and I'm scanning through my Reveal app, looking at my pictures, and I look, and I'm like, Josh, there he is. And it's a grainy picture, but that right main beam swooped around, and I could just tell.
What was the date on that?
It was the 26th or 27th of November. It was the 22nd of November this year.
Okay. So he doesn't show up usually, then it sounds like, until like later in the season.
The year before, he showed up mid-November, and I always had it in the back of my mind. We talked about that. I was like, you know, maybe he'll show up mid-November like he did last year. And sure enough, the 22nd of November, I get one picture of him, and he's kind of got his head up. He's got his lips curled back. You could tell he's following a doe. But that right main beam swooping around just gave him away, like 100% him. So, man, I had a lot of stuff planned that I was going to do, and whenever I got a picture of him, I was like, all right, we're 100% back in on this deer here. So that was the 22nd of November, and me and Josh immediately started pounding that area and hunting when we could, you know, between work and his kids and everything we got going on. Never laid eyes on him, never got another picture of him until it might have been around the first part of December. I got one more trail cam video of him at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and he was headed north, which at that time of day or time of night, it was, I really didn't learn nothing from that. You know, it was like, well, is he coming from bedding, or, you know, it was hard to tell at 10:30 at night, you know. And
it's such a weird time. It's such a weird time, like, where you're not close enough to like gray light that you can't tell if you're like that close to bed. It's like he could be bedded close by, or he could be right near like the food source he's headed to, you know.
Right. I mean, it was a really, and that we talked about that. I was like, man, this is
it's almost like the worst possible time stamp to get.
But naturally, and that camera was literally almost a mile from where I got him on the 22nd of November.
Okay.
He was headed, and the camera that I got the initial picture on him was almost a mile to the north. Well, in this picture, I had this camera to the south of that camera, almost a mile. And he's headed north in this 10-second video clip, headed north with his nose on the ground, headed north. Well, where that camera was about 200 yards from where Drew wounded him the year before. So initially I'm thinking, all right, this is probably his home right in this area. So we immediately started hunting that area. Never seen him, seen a couple, didn't hardly see many deer at all, actually. Saw a few little small deer. But me and Josh pounded that area for 4 or 5 days, nothing. So, of course, now it's just like a guessing game. Who knows where he is? Nothing, no pictures, nothing. Bunch of hunts, never seen him. So, fast forward to the second week of December. I had taken vacation that week from work. Was going to take off that full week to hunt. And I had a buddy coming in from Indiana who was going to hunt with me for a week. And we were going to hunt a completely different area. I kind of thought, this deer's a lost cause. There's probably no need in even trying to get over there hunt. We're just kind of pissing in the wind type deal. So we were going to go hunt another area where I knew some good deer were at that we had actually patterned. We were going to get on those. Well, he was coming in. He was actually, and this kind of, I'm a firm believer in everything happens for a reason. He was supposed to come in on that Friday, and he got delayed and wasn't coming in till lunch on Saturday. So I thought, well, it's Saturday morning. I'm not going to waste the morning. That area is closer to me to hunt than where me and him were headed. I said, I'll just get in there and hunt that morning and just see what I see. Well, it was a south wind that day, and I'd gone in, I guess, 2 to 3 days before that Saturday morning and walked to the north where that deer was headed, and I found a main trail on a cut off the riverbank that was headed east and west. The wind was going to be out of the south that morning, and this is on the north end, the very north end of this place. And so theoretically with that south wind, I'm thinking, well, if there's, I'll catch a deer cruising on this north bank and might get lucky and catch a good buck or him cruising, check stick it to the south. So I get in there, get set well before daylight that morning, and it's one of the prettiest sets I've ever had. Just looking out over the river, it was a perfect crystal clear blue morning, blue skies. It was really cold that morning, but it was a south wind. And right after daylight, I think it was a small spike, 4-point come right under the trail, nose on the ground, and I thought, man, yeah, this is going to be pretty good, And then I'm sitting there, and sun's starting to come up, and I look over my right shoulder, and it was just like, just like, it was just wow. He's standing there, sun shining on him, and he's locked down with a doe, and he's about 250 yards from me, across the cut on the river. He's not even on the piece of property I'm on. He's on the other side of the river, and locked down with the doe on this big willow thicket over there on the other side. And I thought, like the light bulb just went off in my head. I was like, you son of a gun, that's where you've been this whole time probably. And I watched that deer for probably close to an hour that morning, tend that doe. He would not leave her, had her locked down. She wasn't going anywhere. Finally, and they were kind of to the northwest of me a little bit. She finally, I don't know if she caught my scent, something boogered her, and she hauled butt back north, carried him dead away from me. And I'm thinking, I may never see the deer again.
Right.
Well, he headed north across to the big willow thicket across his cut. And this is about 9:30 when they leave. And I immediately call my brother first. And I'm like, dude, I just seen him. Like, I know where he's at. Like, I know where he's at now. And tell him the whole story. And I'm like, man, you got to get with Matt. And because I tried to call Matt, couldn't get hold of him. I was like, you got to get with Matt, tell him what's going on, and you got to get him into this area where I'm at. I'm not leaving. Like, I might see him cross back over, and I want to know if he comes back over across the cut. So Josh is hunting like an hour away from me on some big public land, and he literally gets out of the tree and goes and gets with Matt to guide him into where I'm at. And I tell Matt, like, our plans have changed. Like we ain't leaving. We're not leaving this area. We're going up this area.
Right.
So this is about, let's see, about 11 o'clock now. I told him I didn't bring anything with me, and after seeing that deer, I wasn't leaving. And I think he stopped by the gas station, grabbed me a bottle of water and some crap to eat. And I said at 11:20, I dropped him a pin. I said, I'm gonna meet you here at 11:20 down the ridge, and we're gonna get a game plan together. So he comes in. I talked to him at 11:20, and I'm actually showing him where the deer went off with this doe. And we're sitting there talking, and I'm like, man, you could probably climb this tree right here and probably lay eyes on him this evening, or he potentially could cross over here and come right through here. And it was kind of a sketchy spot. It was wide open, and we talked about it. And I said, and there was another deer in the area that I knew, another Big 10. And I said, or you can go, it's a couple hundred yards from where we're at. You can go right through here. I'll drop you a pin as a prime setup. The wind's perfect, and you can hunt here. And he's like, I think I want to go up the ridge. I was like, okay. So he goes up the ridge. I get my stuff. I go back, get right back in the same tree I was in that morning. At 12:03, I looked at my phone. It was 12:03. I looked down the cut as far as I can see. And by the way, I'm filming all this, so it's all on video. I look down the cut as far as I can see. This is like 600 yards maybe, and I see a deer crossing back over to the side that I'm on. And it's a doe, and then I look, and it's unmistakably him. I see him. And they cross over to my side. Get my phone back out, and I call my brother, and I'm like, man, yeah, I'm pissing in the wind now. Like, I literally just watched this deer cross as far as I could see. He's all the way on the west bank as far as I could see. I said, I'm sitting here. I'm just kind of pissing in the wind now. And me and him are sitting there trying to come up with a plan, like what I could do. Well, the wind was kind of blowing back toward him. I was pretty much screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about it, and I owe my brother a lot of credit because I was wanting to get down and make a move on the deer and try to get in front of him. Guessing just where that doe might take him.
Right.
Me and him are sitting there talking, and Matt is actually probably a couple hundred yards closer to this deer than I am at this point. And we were talking, and my brother Josh, he was like, man, that deer potentially could go right up through there where Matt's at. I'm like, yeah, he probably could. I said, man, I may just hang out. And my brother Josh told me, he said, just stay there. He said, you ain't hunted there all year. We ain't seen him nowhere else. Heck, he may come scent checking down that trail this evening. He might lose that doe. This is at like 12:15, 12:20. And I'm like, you're right. It's a pretty spot. I'm just going to sit here. Maybe I'll see something else. I'm going to stay right here. This is at like 12:15, 12:20. It's probably, I'm going to guess 20 minutes later. I don't know exactly. I'm going to say 20, 25 minutes later, I look up on the trail I'm set up on. I look up to my right. I see a deer coming, and it's him. And he's by himself. And he's walking straight at me. And I'm like, you got to be shitting me right now. Like, this ain't happening. And I immediately, I kind of panicked for a second. I was actually standing up, and I'm like, and I kind of get my composure, and I had my camera set up, and I get my camera turned on, and I reach over, I grab my bow, and I get around, and all this is just kind of happening so fast. And he's coming right at me. And for whatever reason, I don't know why, the main trail that I was set up on comes right in front of me. I'm only 8-9 yards from the riverbank.
Mm-hmm.
Why this deer wanted to try to go between, he turns off the trail and tries to come between me and the riverbank. Like, I don't know if he was potentially going to go off down into the river because it's all dry. The river's super low at that time of year it was back, a month ago. But anyway, and he's coming quick. I barely get my camera on him, and this all just happened so fast, and he's literally like 6 steps. And I draw back, and my camera's here. He's to my right. I draw back, focus on the spot I want to hit, let her rip, and the top limb of my bow hits my external microphone on my camera. And it's the loudest. It sounded like a 22 going off. And dude, when I shot, I thought I completely missed. I thought I completely blew it. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And the deer takes like 4 bounds and hops off the riverbank and runs down there about 20, 30 yards and stops and just kind of looks back my way. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you just blew the only opportunity you just blew the luckiest opportunity you're ever going to have.
Right.
Well, I'm sitting there and I'm trying to get another arrow, and he just where he's at, there's no way on earth I'm getting another shot. And I just set my bow down on my hook and I pick my binoculars up and I'm looking. He's just standing there, and I pick my binoculars up and I'm looking, and I see a big blood spot midways of his body. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I hit him. And I immediately get my camera back on him. And actually, I don't even think I ever turned the camera off record, but I get the camera on him and I'm watching him, and I kind of zoom in and I zoom out, and I can see it with my naked eye. I'm like, I can see guts coming out right midways of him. I'm like, man, I hit him. But I didn't know 100% where the shot was. So I was, I didn't know if it was a lethal shot or not. Well, he walks out there about 40, 50 yards, and he starts that hunch up. You know how they do if you hit one back? When he did that, I knew immediately, like, this deer's probably fatally hit. And he takes another 10 steps, and he lays down. And then I'm like, all right, he's really hurt. To make this story a little quicker, I watched this deer get up, walk 10, 20 yards, and lay back down 9 different times.
Jeez.
And he's in the wide open. There's no way I'm getting down and able to get another area in him. Like, it's not happening. So there was one spot where he laid down and I could get my glasses on him and I could see where my shot was. And I knew then it was probably a liver shot. And I knew this deer was fatally hit. And I just,
it's just a matter of how much time at that point.
That's right. And, as bow hunters, if you've hunted a lot, that you're going to run into this, and it's not something we all want to do to make, not a great shot where they go down as quick as possible, but that's part of hunting, and it's going to happen to you if you hunt. If it hasn't yet, it's going to happen. So when this happens, the only thing you can do is give this deer time to expire. Well, fortunately, where he went, I was able to keep my eyes on him. So I called Josh. I was like, man, you're not going to believe this. I just shot him. He's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, I just shot him. I just shot him. And told him the whole deal. And he's like, I'm coming. I said, well, I told him how to get in there without bumping him. So it takes him about 2.5 hours to get to me. He gets there. Well, in the meantime, I've watched this deer. Like I said, he got up and bedded 9 different times. And at this time, he's about 250, 300 yards from me at this point across the river cut. And Josh gets there, and me and him together, when he gets there, he's there about 15 minutes or so. And when he got there, the deer really, he was bedded. I could barely see him, and he repositioned one time. And then I don't know if you've ever seen it, but when right before they're about to expire, they'll go to doing I call it the old cobra neck. So he started doing that cobra neck really hard, changed positions a couple times, and then me and Josh watched him take his last breath and kind of go down there. And we couldn't see him. Wasn't 100% sure that he was fully expired, but I knew at this point he was pretty sick if he wasn't. So then I told him, I said, all right, we got to get down there. I'm going to, if he's not expired, I can get another area in him now, and I want to get another area in him if I can. So we took off down there, and I slipped in, got the windrush, slipped in, got an air knock just to be sure. And when I walked up on him, he was graveyard dead. So took him right at 3 hours to expire with the liver shot.
Right. Dang, man, that's crazy, dude. And that I think I saw. Did you post an Instagram video of a video of that deer walking through almost like it looked like CRP kind of grass?
It was actually cuckleburrs, what that was.
Oh, is that what that was?
Little video, just kind of just a little bit of video when he was working that doe and stuff.
The video was cool, man. And that just like that scene, looked awesome. It reminded me of hunting out west, like hunting whitetails out west.
Yeah, it was out of all the places I've hunted and all the hunting I've done, that specific hunt as far as scenery and just where I was at, the way the morning was. It was one of the coolest mornings I've ever had. I mean, it was just awesome. It was an awesome spot to have all that come to an end at.
Right.
And man, like I say, I was pretty fired up on that one,
Nice.
when all that come to a close. And then to top it off, my buddy Matt, I shot that deer. I'd have to go back and look. It was anywhere from 12:35 to 1 o'clock, somewhere in that time frame was when I shot that deer.
Right.
And my buddy Matt, so when I get out of the tree, I'm getting my stuff out of the tree, and I had my brother, I said, keep your glasses on him, like don't get him out of your sight just in case he gets up. I'm getting all my stuff together. I get on the ground, and I noticed I want to go back to, with my filming and my camera, I didn't know this at the time, but I knocked my external microphone, blew it all to hell on that top link.
Right.
I knew I knocked it off, but it never registered with me, that camera. So when I did that at the shot, when I draw back and shoot, and that limb blows that microphone up, I lose all audio.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when I looked at all the footage, and thankfully the cord was still plugged into the external microphone port. Well, I filmed, a couple clips, and then finally I pulled that cord out. Well, then when I pulled the cord out, I got my audio back. So there's a couple clips where I lose my audio, which kind of sucks, but most of it's still there.
Still there,
So
yeah.
anyway, when I get down, I tell Josh, I'm like, my camera was showing like 2 or 3 minutes left of SD storage. And I was like, man, I've got a trail cam up here about 300 yards with a card in it. I'm going to go grab this card and come back where we can do the recovery and everything. And I said, it'll take me 10 minutes and I'll be back. So just keep your eyes on the deer. So I go to this trail cam to try to get this SD card and come back. And when I do, Josh is like, did you yell? I'm like, no, what are you talking about? He said, I just heard somebody yell. I said, well, it wasn't me. And he said, well, where's Matt? And I said, well, he's right through there a couple hundred yards. He said, well, he just shot something. He just started hollering. And I was like, well, if he hollered something, he had to have shot a deer, He was like, well, do you want to go out there and check it? I'm like, no, we're going to get my deer.
Right.
We go down, do the recovery, and get my deer, and I'm like, man, it'll be fine. So we do all that, get back up there. I'm like, all right, let's bust through there and check on him. And sure enough, we bust through there and get through there, and Matt's standing over the other big deer that I knew was in the area. He had killed him and shot him at like 3:30 that day.
Jeez.
So we doubled up. It was December 7th, and yeah, man, that was a cool day in the woods for sure.
That's awesome, man. Like that's dude, you've had 2 double ups in 2 years.
Yeah. Well, actually, that Kansas deal was it was the year before last.
Well, was it really?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. It was 2 years ago.
Yeah. Why did I think it was last year?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
Well, still, man, you're the double up guy. That's your
It's cool, man. Yeah, me and Drew doubled up, and then me and Matt doubled up, and yeah, it was fun, man.
That's awesome, dude. Well, man, I've kept you here about an hour and a half, man. I want to be sensitive to your time. Make sure you have some relaxation time before the work grind kicks off again tomorrow morning. But before I let you get out of here, let people know where they can follow along with you, Instagram, YouTube, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, just Instagram. It's my name, Johnathan Moreland, and then I've got a YouTube channel. It's Johnathan Moreland, and I'll be honest with the YouTube, I've been very lackadaisical lately on getting content up, and I've had people on me, and I'm going to do a better job. I've got a lot of hunts that I need to get uploaded and start working on, and again, going to do that. And then I'm on Facebook as well. So, and
Awesome.
always, if anybody needs any help or anything, any questions, they can message me. I'm not great about getting right back to you, but as soon as I can, I try to get back to everybody I can. So if I can help anybody with anything, just shoot me a message, and be glad to do that.
Awesome, brother, man. I appreciate you coming on. I always love chatting with you and spending time with you. You're like everything that's good and right about hunting, man. I just appreciate our friendship.
Well, man, hey, I appreciate you having me on, and yeah, man, stay in touch, and let me know what your next hunt's gonna be like.
Will do, buddy.
All right, dude. See you.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you do that for me. And before I shut this thing down, we need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Osseo Gear, Tethered, and Lathrop & Sons Boot Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.